Welcome back to Beauty Uncovered, sponsored by Olaplex. It's Danielle Frank again, and today we're celebrating Fashion Week. So excited because we have freelance fashion stylist Jimmy Paul. Almost stumbled on that one. Isn't that hysterical? Jimmy Paul, after us discussing it. I'm so excited that you're here. He is really the extent of the body of his work is probably, you have seen it. He has been in all kinds of magazines. He does all kinds of session work. We were discussing that terminology earlier. But thank you so much for coming today. I can't wait to talk to you.
Oh, Danielle, thank you. It's my pleasure and a treat to be with you.
Well, you know, one of the reasons we're talking is that you're going to be doing the hair. Now, we're recording this before Fashion Week, to be honest, but you're going to be doing Jason Wu's show. I'm so excited about that.
Yes, me too. I've worked with Jason Wu for quite some time. He's a great fashion designer. For the people that don't know on the podcast who he is, he's a big fashion designer star, and he does fashion shows in New York every season. And I've gotten to do quite a few with him. And he's a fascinating guy, and he gets involved in all sorts of other things too. He has incredible taste. He's an incredibly smart man, and he loves beauty, and he loves hair and makeup and beautiful models and women looking their best, and great clothes, and the women look great. So it's a treat to be working with this amazing team. Everybody on the team is the best, and so it's an honor, you know, and it's humbling to be invited. And this season will be my first time working with Olaplex on the fashion show and with their team and with their products. So it's a big honor, big moment for me.
We're so excited because also they just are announcing this week that you are an Olaplex ambassador. And I am so thrilled, and I get to talk to you first. Ha ha.
Yes, you do.
But you know what? We're going to dive into all of that. But I want everybody to kind of get to know you first. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Fashion Week. And you can kind of give us some of the insider stuff that goes on in that. So I have to talk about your career because, you know, I read a little bit about you where you started where your mother was a hairdresser, correct?
Yes. My mom is a lifelong hairstylist. Yeah, hairdresser. And yes, so that my mom is a huge influence on my career. Absolutely.
I love that.
You.
Now, was she the one that encouraged you to go to New York City?
No. Let me start from the beginning.
Or were you a rebel and you said, I'm going?
I was an absolute rebel. I'm from a small town outside of Pittsburgh called Swissvale. And Swissvale in Pittsburgh at the time, anyway, was very provincial, small place. And I don't think it was very out of the ordinary for anybody to move away. Period, let alone New York. Like, whenever I told people that I was going to go to New York, they said to me, why? You know, because to people from Pittsburgh, that's the big city. And if you were going to go somewhere, you'd go to the beach or something. So they really didn't, it wasn't in anybody's mind. And because I was a kind of kid that lived in a fantasy world and loved music, and music was probably my first introduction to fashion, because they're so tied together, and the way the musicians looked was fashionable. And so I would study the way they looked and read the album covers and then the 8-track tapes and whatever of, who took the picture and what they were wearing. And sometimes it would say who did the hair and makeup, every once in a while it would say things like that. And that was all we had. We didn't have the internet. And then, maybe my mom would get some magazines or catalogs in the mail, and I would, that became a foundation for me of the beginning. And then actually, besides my mom doing hair, my mom doing her own hair and makeup. and getting dressed up made such an impact on me because I saw how empowering it was for a woman. And it's just alchemy, it's magic. And that was absolutely my foundation, that kind of combination, my being very close with my mom, and my mom being, for a lot of the time, a single mother, and just how powerful hair and makeup and appearance could be, how transformative.
I love that so much, because literally that is the reason I got into the industry, was that empowerment that women feel when they are able to kind of actualize how, like, the way they've always saw themselves. That is such a gift.
It really is. And to be able to participate in, and I remember I would get so excited it was a very sweet moment of my childhood where, my mom would see that I loved how she looked and it would make her happy. And, so it was a very intimate mother and child kind of relationship. It was part of our relationship, and it would be fun for us and fun for me. And so that was probably my mom's biggest influence on me. And because what I do, I've never considered myself technically proficient. Now, people might argue with that, but it's really, to me, how you look and feel. Besides, when I was little and watched my mom doing hair, I didn't think I'd be able to do it. I thought that it was far beyond my capabilities, because my mom's approach to hair cutting and stuff was very mathematical. Like, she would say, use numbers. And I always had a phobia about numbers and math and all of that kind of thing. So my approach to it was, whatever it takes to make you look good, let's do that. And maybe it won't be perfect, but if you look great and you feel great, none of it matters. And that's still what I think. And to talk about, I remember my mom, and to talk directly about what we're doing, I remember being a little boy, and my mom perming her hair and then perming it again. And I remember thinking, like, but that doesn't look good. You're damaging your hair. And so to me, the health of skin and hair and mental health, this is how you're going to look your best, is if you're, and I started to get into, and I'm sure I saw it in some magazine, like a celebrity or Farrah Fawcett or someone like that, saying that they took care of their diet. And, so in this most superficial stuff, I got an education out of it. And how you feel, how your energy is, how your health is, this all makes a difference in how empowered you feel and look. And, I think somehow it's in a positive, healthy way, it's our armor, right? It's an armor. And for a woman, and I mostly do women's hair, and I will say, that's where my focus is. So that's what I'll talk about today is, for a woman, it's kind of in a healthy way, armor, just like ready to face the world. They're healthy, their mental health is good. They feel good about their hair and their appearance and everything else that goes with appearance. But as I'm a hairdresser, I'll talk about hair. So, and like you said earlier, to be able to, it's such a gift, the business, on the great days, right? It's on some days, we're all human, right? Some days aren't great, but when we hit it right, we are able to give joy to people. As a hairstylist. And I've had moments where I made people so happy by doing this little alchemy, this little magic that I've learned that they couldn't do themselves, that they don't understand. But as a hairstylist, if we learn and take the time, it's a foreign language to people. Like, how did they get to do that?
Without a doubt. I still think that, like, in many ways, even with all the things that are on the internet, all the things that you can find in information, there's still a disconnect to the breadth of knowledge that we all are bringing into it and pulling it all together, pulling it all from different places. I think of how you were saying that you weren't mathematical and probably more artistic, which
Yes.
I get that.
Right.
But you probably were pulling a little bit from everywhere.
Absolutely. And then
without a doubt.
And then you realize that, I mean, I realized that there's something sculptural about hair and architectural. So in some far corner of my mind, there is a sense of math and geometry, but it just wasn't, it didn't hold my interest. It didn't hold my interest the way a beautiful woman would.
But I got to ask, I know you were mentioning 8-tracks. I'm like, what music was inspiring you? I want to know.
Well, I loved FM radio, and I loved the Sonny and Cher show or the Cher show.
Yeah.
And so all of those were foundations. And then I loved rock music, but when David Bowie, the single Changes came, and all of a sudden it was flooded with glitter rock and pictures in my little town, in my little world, I started to see this. That was the biggest. David Bowie was my big thing. And then later Grace Jones and
David Bowie has a soft spot in my family. Our cat is named Ziggy Stardust.
Oh my goodness, amazing.
We love David Bowie in this household. And they are so iconic, not just obviously for their music, but their look was so distinctive. It was artistic.
Yes, it was part of it. It was a package. And the thing that's still so amazing to me is that I felt like I found this obscure thing that the kids at school made fun of, and now everybody agrees that David Bowie was great. So it's kind of like,
and it makes me wonder. I mean, with all of those iconic people in that time, and granted, at that time, a lot of people did not necessarily understand it, but I wonder if in today's world, I'm like, how many people have that level of like music artists that have that kind of artistry or bringing in that is just this full package? Can you think of any? Because I'm like sitting here, I don't know.
You know, I think it's really it is about youth in a way. So because I was a kid when I became a fan, I think that if you ask kids today,
maybe Harry Styles.
Yeah, who is inspiring you? Who is making you dress differently? Who is, I would say Kanye West, for instance. Like, I mean, this is someone who, when I look at Kanye West, he's invented colors. Mm-hmm. When I look at his clothes, like, of course, he's not the first person to, so maybe invent colors isn't quite right, but there's a palette of colors. Which I happen to love at my age. And I love the colors, like these soft blacks and, these different shades of gray and, beige and tan. And it's incredible. Now,
I think of also like Lizzo. I mean, because it's so unique and beautiful and artistic. I think there's so many. Actually, now that I'm thinking, because I was like, I wonder who. Because to me, David Bowie, like, that's just like he was his own category, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and you're right. Lizzo's a great example of female empowerment and what she's done for beauty and the way she looks. And Megan Thee Stallion, her hair and makeup and outfits are so advanced and so precise and so elevated.
And how could I forget Gaga?
That's another one. Again, this is like this tremendous, and this has influenced the world. So yes, imagine saying to somebody who's say 20 or 25, asking them, it's going to be someone like Lady Gaga for sure. I have friends, and for me, I am not as enamored with Lady Gaga because I grew up with what I grew up with. So it's like, I could say, yes, you're great, but I grew up with Ziggy Stardust and David Bowie, and even
Right.
Madonna. Even Madonna branded.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
was thrilling. Was thrilling. That I remember I moved to New York in 1982, and Madonna had worked. Everybody was abuzz with Madonna. She had worked at a club in the East Village that we were going to, and then she did a single. So, you know, I saw this, and also Boy George.
Oh, yeah.
When I moved to New York in 1982, Boy George had just started. So, you know, there's a lot of predecessors to these people. But if you're 20 now, you don't know that. You know, you don't feel that. You don't feel the impact of history the same. So I think that the world of style and music is doing just fine.
Right.
They all have.
Here we went on a merry squirrel journey here, and I was trying to find out what was the catalyst to get you to New York, and I got distracted.
Okay, good. I'm glad you can edit this. So, but when I was a little boy, I started to talk about doing hair with my mom at some point, and it wasn't really encouraged because it wasn't always a great job in Pittsburgh. And, you know, I think my mom wanted me to go to college or wanted a bigger life for me than what hair could give me. And also she told me something quite interesting more recently, that she wasn't sure would keep my interest. So that, you know, maybe kind of maintenance, say in a salon, a lot of times we're doing maintenance, right? We're doing little trims.
Touch-ups.
Yes. And so she didn't think that would keep my interest. And it's incredibly insightful, because I agree. It would have been hard for me. And so I became a very rebellious teenager, unbeknownst to myself. All of a sudden that started happening, and I started to go out to nightclubs a lot. And I'd heard some friends move to New York, and I thought, that's where I want to be. I want to be around those nightclubs. I want to be around the fashion world. I want to be around the music world. And I want to find what I want to do. I didn't know if I wanted to be a fashion designer or work in that part of fashion world. I didn't know if I wanted to. I didn't know. But I knew that I loved dressing up, and I loved clothes and fashion magazines and stuff. So I came to New York, and my first jobs were in nightclubs, and, you know, beginning jobs, and you need to do something. And I found a community in the nightclub world, and I made some amazing friends that I'm still friends with now, including Danilo, the hairstylist, and Orlando Pita, and different people. And at some point, I didn't have a lot of confidence, but my guess is that maybe in my subconscious, I thought, maybe I can do what they do. Maybe I'll be able to figure it out. And I went to a beauty school called Robert Fiance, and I just thought,
sorry, I'm like having flashbacks.
Yes, no problem. So it's no longer in business, but it was one of the only ones then. So I went to just to go see. I thought, let me just go see what it would be like and what the steps would be. And I'm guessing now that the woman that I met that showed me this school was on commission of some sort, right? I didn't put these together. Did she sell it hard? And I told her, you know, I can't afford to go now, but I wanted to ask you what it costs and what it would be like. And she said, I can get you a grant and a loan, and you could start next week. So
nice.
So all I had, I'd lost all of my ID. All I had was like a little paper social security card. I don't think I even had a birth certificate. And I got a loan with that. Can you imagine? You could never do that now. It's a completely different world. So I started beauty school. I was terrible. I had absolutely no sense of dexterity or the focus that you need. I think people don't realize you needed a tremendous amount of focus to do hair. and concentration. And I had to build that like a muscle. And I also had to build dexterity. Like, I think that women sometimes have a great advantage as hairstylists because they're used to even doing like their own hair, or doing like basic plaits from when they're a little girl, basic braiding, or maybe they've blown out their hair before. Well, I had never done any of that. I mean, I did have hair then, but maybe I put gel in it, or wax or something. So that's as much as I did. But from my lifetime of looking, it took me years, but it took me years to get out of my fingers what my imagination. That was a very long process.
That's a hard one. It is actually really hard.
Yeah.
And it is almost like a muscle also.
Yes.
Not just the dexterity and all that, but there's like a muscle that you can cramp if you're not practicing regularly.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a very, very long process. It took me years. Now, I've seen people go much faster than me, but get good much faster than I did, but it took me a long time.
So knowing that you come out of beauty school, just like anybody else, you go into a salon, we all learn, the different processes that we do. What was it that got you to the point where you're doing fashion, quite frankly. You're doing beautiful editorial work. I was looking at some of the covers you did. Be Still My Heart. I was like, oh, that's the kind of stuff that I would get excited about when it came to hairdressing when I first started. So
yes,
I'm dying of curiosity. Like, what was it that was a transition to that?
Well, I have to say it was like a pipe dream, but that's why I went to beauty school, because I had met people and I had heard about this world, and I lived in New York, and I thought, go to beauty school. In my naivete, go to beauty school. And actually, I talked to a makeup artist, and I thought, maybe I want to be a makeup artist. I don't know. And she said, well, go to beauty school, because that way you'll have a trade and you'll have a foundation. And I thought, oh, like my mom? I don't know, maybe. So I went to Robert Fiance. And so I backed that story up a little bit. But so then while I was in beauty school, I needed a job. So I started to go to some salons. And I started to go to some of the top salons, and I got hired at this one salon, and they had people there that had worked for Vogue and things like that. And it was so strict, and they were so, in my mind, mean, but probably in their mind, they just were trying to get the job done, and I wasn't catching on. And I thought, there's no way I'd ever I can't even do this. I can't even be an assistant, let alone. So I definitely got my self-esteem
I think trapped. A lot of people just assume like, oh, go to beauty school, and by the time you come out, you're doing hair. But the truth is that like, it is extensive. It's very expensive. And, if you're lucky enough to get to some place that they have some kind of mentoring or classes or something, it's so needed, because it takes a hot minute to learn all that.
It really does. And
with proficiency.
It took me extra. It took me extra long. It really did. So for any of you slow learners out there, believe me, I was one. So my first job, funny enough, coincidental as far as Olaplex is concerned, was in salons. What they always need is a color assistant. It's sort of like the toughest job to fill. So my first jobs were as a color assistant, and it's quite hard to shampoo out the color, and I had to learn that, and that alone is a lesson. So I have a tremendous appreciation for great hair color. It's talk about alchemy, and talk about magic, and talk about skill level and patience and artistry. I have tremendous respect for it. In fact, I didn't ever feel like I was good enough at it. You know, I was sort of, it just wasn't I wasn't good enough, to be honest. And so at one point, there was a man named Oribe who, you know, a very famous hairstylist named Oribe, and I started to read his credits in magazines and noticed that he was working with the photographer Steven Meisel and doing all of these beautiful, beautiful pictures and hairstyles. And I thought, that's what I like. This is my thing at the moment. I love what these guys are doing. Then I started to see ads for that Oribe was opening a salon. Oh. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm working as a hair colorist. I'm not thriving. I think I was 23. I thought maybe I could go back to be an assistant and try to learn my dream, right? Which was to work in the fashion business.
That's like a hard decision, though. You got to admit, even at 23.
Very hard. It was a very hard decision because
once you get used to that money.
I'll be honest, I never made a lot, but I made more than I ever had. Right. So then, just as luck would have it, Danilo, who I mentioned earlier, I run into him, and he tells me, "I'm going to work at the Oribe salon." And I said, "Oh, I was thinking about it." He said, "You could use me as a recommendation." So I go there, and I'm thinking there's going to be lines around the block. They're never going to hire me. Why would they hire me whenever everybody in New York is going to want to work there? And I keep thinking of this one word, and it is forecasting, right? Forecasting meaning like that you're going to guess what the future is, right? What the future of trends are. And I think that is what you see in fashion, and that you'll see the next thing, right? So you might see something or a hairstyle or clothes or a look, and you might think, I don't like that. But in 6 months, you might be wearing that, right? So that's the idea of forecasting something forward. And I didn't know it, but I do believe that's one of my gifts. So when I went to apply for a job at Oribe, there was no one else there. They were desperate for an assistant. I started like the next day. So I would say if I have any gifts, that's one of them.
You're able to predict what's the next best thing.
I mean, you know, I wouldn't put money on it, but in that case, it definitely was.
Maybe in this genre, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So I started there. And again, I started from the absolute bottom. But, you know, it was like nothing was really working. Like the hair color wasn't working. The salons weren't working. All of a sudden, I felt it kind of starting to click that maybe I could do this. And they really took me under their wing. And in a very long story of how much they took me under their wing. But eventually I started to do photo shoots. And like any job with photo shoots, there are baby ones, there are little ones, there are small jobs that maybe nobody else wants to do. Or it's August in New York right now. And traditionally, August is a month where the business slows down. Well, I worked all August, you know, just trying to get my foot in. And those are, so I started, and I was very fortunate to work with great people. And in the world of fashion, a lot of times we have agents. As a hairstylist, I have an agent. Her name is Susan Price. And they help us, right? So there was an agent named Omar who helped me. He worked for Oribe as well. And so nobody was available. And he would say, well, what do you want to try Jimmy? And a few people said yes. So that's how I built it. That's how that's where I started. And I had some incredibly lucky breaks. And
so have you ever had any situations where you're showing up at a shoot, right? Whether it be fashion or something like Fashion Week or whatever, and you are presenting your ideas and they're just like, no.
All the time.
Really?
all the time. That's what makes it extremely stressful, because I know everybody has heard this saying, well, it's not brain surgery, right? Or like, oh, it's just hair.
No, but it is artistic interpretation, I guess.
Well, you cannot
everybody has a different vision.
You cannot imagine how much importance people put on hair, because what happens is that it helps define the whole look of the woman or the photograph, or it becomes extremely important in context to the look. So say you're doing a fashion show. I'm doing a fashion show. I think it has something to do with the first thing people look at when they look at someone on the street, in a picture, on a fashion show, is they look at eyes. They look, because the eyes are how you can tell someone's a human, how someone's healthy, how someone's like, it's a difference between a mannequin, right? Our eyes move, right? And so the first thing they look at is the eyes, and eyes and hair are so close together, right? So that they start to put the picture together and the image of the woman together. They start with the head, the face, the hair. So it says it is the fashion designer's image and message. So what I do is I'm creating an image for the designer. So, imagine the responsibility. They have to trust. They have to trust me to do that.
But that's almost no different than the person that sits in your chair, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's kind of like, again, it's like helping them actualize their vision. I mean, that is, but there's a lot of trust in that.
There's a lot of trust in that. And I mean, and it could go from, I know that, sometimes like somebody will say, I just want a little trim, and you give them a little trim and there's sort of an ease to it. But, if that little trim goes wrong, that is an alarm goes off for the client. And it's the same in the fashion business, but it's at a bigger scale and a bigger price, a lot of money on their reputation and everything that goes with that. So there can be a lot of anxiety in the fashion business. It's not for everybody, but I think, and I've told this to people that have asked me about the job, you have to really want it. You have to love it, because otherwise it's thankless, right? The hours are long, the pay isn't always great.
I think the speed sometimes also of how quickly you have to come up with these ideas. Because I know that you're not going to know anything about the models, anything about the clothing until right before. And you have to come up with a plan and make sure you can execute it on everybody. I can't even wrap my brain around how quickly and how organized you got to be in order to have that done.
Yes, but say for someone like Jason Wu, he's a very sophisticated man and very kind and very good at business and being organized. So what we'll do is we'll have a meeting, and I'll go in for a meeting with the makeup artist and with the fashion stylist. So there's a group of us, and they will show me the clothes, and they will talk about hair ideas. And usually the Jason Wu woman is sleek and has like sleek, shiny, healthy hair, often tied back somehow. And so then we have a model, and we call it a hair and makeup test. So we'll try out things in variations on that theme, on this sort of sleek look. And so we do have we have a foundation of what the idea will be. But I'm still under the gun. I'm still performing with people watching me work. And that has its own anxiety. And believe me, if I didn't love the final outcome, I wouldn't want to do it. It's because that's stressful. And there's other ways to survive in life that are less stressful. But I love the world, so it's worth it for me.
So it brings back to, because I mean, I love the fact that Jason does do that beautiful, sleek, gorgeous look. And right now, so many people are mimicking that in the street to begin with.
Yes.
But I do find like models' hair is definitely, like, I've worked on a few different models that have done different shoots. And then by the time you got them, you know, they have all kinds of stuff going on. Those poor things, sometimes what they go through. I love the fact that, like, they really do consider everything when it comes to that, to make sure that they're not really doing anything that's going to be detrimental to their career, because that's their hair.
Absolutely. And, you know, one thing I've learned is that some women will have a sense of their hair and say to me, oh, don't use this, use that, or be careful with that brush, or my hair doesn't work well with heat or that kind of heat, but some people don't have that gift and they just sort of sit there and trust, and their hair can be really beat up. I mean, certainly even the people that have a tremendous sense of their hair can get beat up. But I've seen girls' hair be ruined, and it ruined their careers. It might ruin their careers because they don't have nice hair anymore. And it might ruin their careers because it ruined their esteem. It ruined their confidence. Because imagine some 16-year-old girl, or whatever age a model is when they start, hopefully 18 or above, and they come with their regular hair that everybody told them their whole life that you're beautiful or you're interesting looking, whatever their image of themselves was. And then within 6 months, it's up to here and it's broken. And sometimes models are people with feelings. So it can just destroy their confidence. So the idea of me, I love to make people, regardless of what situation I'm in, is make people feel comfortable. So, you know, like we were talking earlier, like say, for instance, the number 9 by Olaplex, right? So you have a foundation, a prep kind of product that you're protecting the hair, you're getting it into a curl pattern, or you're helping it to have the memory. Say if we're doing it all up, you start that foundation of putting it in that direction, and you're already conditioning the hair. I mean, to talk a little bit about Olaplex, I think that, you know, as someone in my position, and when I'm putting my name together with something, right? The idea of that there is the innovation that Olaplex has is so unique, that they have these patented innovations and that are all about the health of the hair. I don't know off the top of my head, and I know you can agree, it's a very short list of brands that have that. So if any,
not like Olaplex, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's a thrilling thing to be able to bring this to the fashion business, right? So whether it's the number 6, whether I'm smoothing hair out, and because that's a big part of my look, right, is sort of blowing hair out, right, as a foundation. Maybe, I mean, I love curls, but even the curls that I do tons of the natural look and natural texture, but I also do a lot of curling iron, a lot of blow drying, a lot of straightening iron. So to have these built-in products that have protection, not that you can't.
September, they still have that humidity going on in New York City. I mean,
oh yeah, it will be very. I'm always afraid, and I don't even want to put it out in the universe. But like, yes, there is the
having an anti-frizz is always helpful in a runway show for sure.
Yeah, no frizz in a runway show is very important.
Yeah,
and so yes, like, and we were talking about the number 9, the oil. It's very light, and also what people don't always realize is that for a fashion hair, say it's a fashion shoot, like we might try something in the morning, and maybe it'll be a very sleek, tight ponytail kind of style.
Mm.
But then
I bet the number 7 works so good with that. That oil.
Yes, so good with that. But then they might say, we don't like that. Let's do it giant waves. It's so important that the products you can move. They keep the hair clean. So these products that we're naming are light enough that then you could add something to make volume and make it big, and it won't be drenched. Of course, you could overuse products, but if you don't overuse these products, the hair will be clean and you could change it. And then go back to the ponytail, because sometimes they'll say that, the ponytail was the better idea. So then you got to go back in with the heat. So imagine what you're doing to a model's hair in one day. And the same thing goes with fashion shows. Maybe they have 4 fashion shows in the day, and every time style with extensions and sprays. And anyway, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
No. I valid point. It's funny because I keep thinking with, our listeners might not completely understand, because I mean, obviously we all style our hair. And when we're talking about, creating that baseline, as like, using the number 9, having that's going to create memory. When we say memory, we're saying when you're blowing out your hair, it's not that you're going to get necessarily like that curl you would get from a curling iron. It is getting that volume, getting it to move to that movement. It's very important in a good hairstyling to get that baseline started first before you do all that other stuff. I didn't know that before beauty school, believe it or not.
Yes, I mean, I think the direction that hair is going to be, that's why I like to start off in most cases with clean hair and clean, washed and conditioned hair, because then you could start to make, so say if I'm going to do something like a side part, and it easily goes into the part, and then you put something in with memory, and the part's going to stay, and then I start to work with my hands, and you're halfway there already, right? Because you can kind of play with it around the person's face and find what's flattering and see what the next step will be. Okay, do we naturally dry it? Do we blow dry it? Smooth? Do we add curling iron, or am I going to scrunch it, or what are we going to do?
I'm actually really impressed that you start with clean hair, because like for years you would never hear that about someone that was doing a whole styling thing.
Yes, I mean, it's just a unique thing to me. Now, you'll remember this with from your salon thing, that like, say if somebody was going to do a wedding updo, it's good to have the hair a day dirty or something like that. I never really understood that, but I'm sure that those people, have their reason. I never really got it. Now, if you have very coarse hair that that's a different story. If you have very coarse hair that you're wearing straight, yes, to wash it and it blows up back to curly and then have to just straighten it again, that is a case where freshly washed hair isn't the best idea. But it really depends on the texture. But
wow.
So yeah.
It's fascinating, because like I said, when I was younger, I didn't know the whole concept of like creating the shape with the blow dryer and a brush and getting that down first, in order to have not just like, say, loose waves, so popular, the beach waves and all that other stuff. But even if I wanted to do something like a little cute bun or, a high ponytail or something like that, because I did have hair once upon a time. But I didn't really understand when you had that really great base with, the right products that are going to have a little bit of memory, it's going to make your job so much easier. Plus, get more out of the hairstyle.
Yes. Yeah. So even back to to talk about the different textures of hair that people are born with, I want to start out with hair that is clean looking, meaning like you could brush it, you could move it, so that way I could create something. So and that's what's great about, like, so even for hair that's curlier, that these kind of products will just have quality. It's all about the quality of the hair, the health of the hair, how the shine of the hair, the movement. And I think that that's where beauty starts for me.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now, I do have to ask because, again, Jason Wu,
Sure.
we have that entire look that's sleek and gorgeous, but I've seen some of your editorial work.
Oh,
that
you.
has to take a lot. Like, talk about creativity. I've seen is there any particular shoot that you think of? Because I've seen you have done more celebrities than I can possibly imagine. Like, was there ever a shoot that you looked at and went like, bam, like I can't, I'm done. I'm done. I can't get any better than this.
Absolutely not, because I'm always interested in tomorrow and not resting on my laurels. I mean, that's
okay. So then name your top favorites.
Well, I have mentioned the photographer Steven Meisel. He is, I think of his work as being the premier. I think as human beings, we get to witness genius, and we spoke of David Bowie and Grace Jones, and think of someone like Aretha Franklin, or like those people were geniuses in their field, and they also got very famous, so we all know their names. But say like in any field, well, in my field, Steven Meisel is the genius that I've been around. Not the only one, but to be in that, it's a privilege, right? So to get to kind of be in the zone of that, and for the hair to be working. And so, yes, there has been some moments when I've been like, oh my goodness.
I can't even imagine, like, to
this
be
is working.
able to do your art. Because I'm sorry, please, everybody, if you have a chance, go look up his work. To see your art, and be able to create and beautiful models, these gorgeous actresses.
Yes, that helps.
That helps. But then to have a genius photographer capture your hard work, that beautiful moment, and that gorgeous model that's going to capture that. Wow, that must be so, I don't know. Like, I'm a little jealous right now, Jimmy.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, it's definitely, I think the joy that I didn't know I was going to experience, and the tremendous privilege, is the teamwork. And so never really, it's never about my idea. It's more about the magic that happens with us together. Those are the most fulfilling days. Like, if I go in with like a really rigid idea, like this is what I'm going to do today, sometimes it can go really flat because people don't feel a part of it. But if it kind of happens, that's the thing about photo shoots. Like, right, you get there and everybody's together, and then things just sort of happen in front of us, because we're trying and we're staying with it and we're staying with the process. And maybe some of your audience have heard of the makeup artist Pat McGrath. This is another genius I've gotten to work with, and I've been lucky enough to work with the model Linda Evangelista. Like, these people are so extraordinary. So
she's a goddess.
Yes, and then the newer generations like Gigi and Bella Hadid. They're both, and not to lump them together because they're incredible individuals. One of the people definitely that I've had the incredible privilege of meeting when I was an assistant, and still know, and I've done her hair recently, is Naomi Campbell.
Wow.
And and just to go back to my mom, I'm so blessed that I have that foundation, because in my position as a hairstylist, and I think in every hairstylist's position, is we are supporting these people that we're working with. So to be able to be there as a support to these women that I'm naming, and to help them with their confidence. Because of course, as hairstylists, as you know, it's not just hair, right? We're listening to, sometimes we have to kind of decipher what people want. They might not say, I want this black and white idea. They might say, oh, I kind of want it like this. I kind of think maybe it's this. And, we have to focus and give our undivided attention.
And everybody has a different language in how they communicate. So you have to be well-versed in all languages, so to speak.
Yes. Trim is this or this.
Right.
And this could be a heart attack. So, or blonde could mean so many things, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's, and like I said, I am grateful for the fact that the internet is definitely making it more accessible for people to have a better understanding so they can have conversations. I know I try on my social media to kind of talk about that language because it makes it a lot easier for everybody to get what they want and make a hairdresser's life a lot easier for sure. But also really help that person get really what they want. It's very hard sometimes.
Yeah. Yes, it is hard, but on the good days, it's worth it.
No, definitely. Definitely. Well, with that being said, I feel like I've taken so much of your time and this was just so joyful. I enjoyed this so much, and congratulations on the Jason Wu show, which I have to say, I can't wait to see because, again, we're recording this earlier, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to work with you again.
Thank you, Danielle. Me too. It was a pleasure.